Hey everybody, welcome to Mondays with Mike. Obviously it's a special edition of Mondays with Mike because I'm at home and I have Jelly with me. Also the dogs are in the yard and they are cutting up big time. So you may hear some barking from time to time. So I'm going to let him sit here. Maybe he'll stay, maybe he won't. I think he wants to go run around with the dogs. But anyway, here's Jelly. He's gotten probably a little larger since the last time you saw him. He's got a very large belly, and I found out what's been happening is that he is eating the dog food. So when we're not paying attention, he kind of sneaks in and I hear some crunching, and then I realize that he is eating his cat food and the dog food. So maybe some of you out there have a solution. Hey, look, enough yapping. Welcome to Mondays with Mike. It is Monday, and it is spring break. It's what, the 11th? What's today? Something like that. Anyway, it is the 11th. It is spring break. Kind of a cloudy day, I know. If you look up in the sky today, you may see some asperitus clouds. They're called undulatus clouds. They're undulating. I'm going to show you. They're called undulatus clouds. And they are called that, because they are wavy clouds. Here we go. See? These are undulatus clouds, otherwise known as wave clouds. And there are lots of different undulatus types of clouds that we see. Some of them take on like a ribbed sort of appearance, but these asperitus ones are kind of the prettiest one. These are not exactly like the best example. This is more of like a stratocumulus, I suppose, with a little undulatus twist. But it's, here we go. All right, let me lock this down here. But it is a beautiful, beautiful sight. So if you go out there, please check it out. Sorry, I don't have a cameraman. I'm the cameraman. There we go. So anyway, check those out. Hope you all are doing well. I want to talk today about hurricane season forecasts that are going to be coming out. And the reason I want to talk to you about it is they're probably going to be very scary. As you know, there's been a lot of sort of, well, I suppose increased attention, over the last several years based on these seasonal forecasts. So just to tell you the difference, I mean, a hurricane forecast is a tropical depression or a tropical storm forms, and then we track it. You get a cone of uncertainty. We can maybe look 5-7 days out, maybe 8 days out, and have an idea of where it's going. A seasonal forecast is before the season starts, sometimes months before the season starts. There are different techniques for trying to predict how many named storms there will be, meaning how many storms reach at least tropical storm strength, which is maximum sustained winds of 40 miles per hour or higher. And I'll talk about a lot of the problems involved with that, sort of pitfalls and things that can be wrong with those types of forecasts. But I just wanted to talk about the fact that we're going to get the first forecast from Colorado State University. That's going to come out on April the 4th. So that's in 4 weeks. I believe it's a Thursday. So that's going to be coming out on April 4th. And I could almost guarantee you it's going to be a very, very high number. I'll guarantee, I'll put money on it right now, it's going to be a high number. So in an average season, we would have 14 named storms. This is a 30-year average. The 30-year average is 14, technically 14 and a half on average, with 7 of named storms, with 7 of those becoming hurricanes and 3 of those becoming major hurricanes, which would be category 3, 4, or 5. based on a few things. Right now, we're in an El Nino phase. And an El Nino is abnormally is an area that we watch in the Pacific Ocean. It's really like broken up into like a rectangle from the west coast of South America heading out into like almost like into the central Pacific Ocean. Far away from us. We see, unless you've traveled to Peru or something, or Ecuador, you would have no need to know anything about this region of the Pacific Ocean. But it has a substantial impact on climate and weather changes around the world. When it's unusually warm like it is now, we call it an El Nino. And that's one of the reasons that we've had this terrible weather in California. We've had a lot of that based on the ongoing El Nino in the Pacific Ocean. When we have an El Nino, it strengthens the jet stream because it makes a bigger difference, what's called a gradient, between the cold air at the poles and the warm air at the equator. And the bigger that difference is, the stronger the jet stream is going to be. And so that's what's been bringing these atmospheric rivers, this huge transport of moisture from the Pacific Ocean into California. So they've recently had like 4 or 5 feet of snow over around Lake Tahoe. And obviously we know of some of the catastrophic flooding that took place in San Diego and in Los Angeles and among other spots. And yes, some of that has made its way over here too. In fact, for the year, we're way above average on our rainfall for the year so far. So what does this have to do with anything? Well, typically in an El Nino summer, the number of hurricanes is usually held down because of that stronger jet stream. It creates what we call shear. So the storms try to form, and then the top of them are kind of sheared off. And it doesn't prevent storms from forming completely, but it does, on average, cut down their number. In fact, until recently, as of when we look at data from the 70s, 80s, 90s, the El Nino would typically cut the average number of storms in half. So, in an average season, you might have had 12 named storms. El Nino year, you might have 6 or 7. It also usually cuts down the number of major hurricanes. However, those are just the total numbers. And as we all know, last year is a perfect example. We had a ton of hurricanes. It was one of the busiest hurricane seasons on record, and we had really no threats at all to the Houston, Galveston area. So you could absolutely have extremely busy seasons with no threats or very little threat whatsoever for us. You could also have extremely slow seasons where we get decimated. And the example that I always use is 1983. And anybody who was here, I wasn't here, but if you were here in 1983, Houston was hit by a Category 3 hurricane named Hurricane Alicia, which actually was the last Category 3 or higher storm to make a direct landfall in our area, believe it or not, because Hurricane Ike was rated as a Category 2. But Alicia had 120 mile per hour winds. It blew out all of the glass, or not all of it, but a bunch of the glass at the skyscrapers downtown, because you had these whipping winds of 90 mile an hour winds downtown, and there was like gravel and debris. See, now look at the animals. Oh my gosh. Pippen, come here. Come here. Say hi to everybody. Excuse me for a minute. Come here, Bobo. Oh, he's a good boy. Oh, wait, that's my microphone. No, come here, Pippi. Sorry, guys. This is Pippen. He is a good boy, aren't you? You give kisses? No? Ah. Anyway, Pippen would get very scared if we had a hurricane, so I hope we don't have one. But in 1983, way before Pippen's time, Alicia was the first hurricane of that season, the very first, and it formed in late August. So you went all of June, all of July, 3 weeks in August, nothing, nothing, nothing. And then And then we had a Category 3 hurricane. And there were only 3 storms after that. So there were a total of 4 in the entire year. Excuse me for a second. So there were a total of 4 in the entire season. So the seasonal forecasts that have this diabolical number of storms, 16 storms, 20 storms, 25 storms, in the grand scheme of things, really doesn't matter. Because we have some years where it's Florida, some years it's North Carolina, some years it's all in the Caribbean or the Atlantic Ocean, like this last year was Florida and the Atlantic. And some years we have very few storms and we get hit. The point of me telling you this is there are going to be huge headlines. I promise you. There are going to be huge headlines within the next month, maybe 6 weeks, that are going to be the scariest things ever. Epic hurricane season ahead, busiest hurricane season of all time expected, forecasters concerned, all of that stuff. Is there reason for concern? Yes, but there's reason for concern every single hurricane season. I mean, look, we've had devastating, deadly hurricanes going back hundreds of years, thousands of years, right? And so what do? Well, you take all of the proper precautions, whether the forecast calls for 5 storms or 25 storms, okay? If you live near the coastline or in a very low-lying area that floods all the time, make plans to evacuate. It's as simple as that. That's the best way. There's the best way to save lives and property, well, lives and injury during a hurricane is A, you evacuate the coastline. Any place that is at risk for storm surge flooding, evacuate. Stay with friends, go to a hotel, whatever you got to do for a couple of days to get away from your home near the coastline. Evacuate. Second thing is, don't drive in weather where it's flooding. So you evacuate ahead of time. You heed all of the warnings to stay off the roadways, because the majority of the people who die in hurricanes here in Southeast Texas die from flooding and primarily die in their cars. That's the God's honest truth. Die in their cars or after having to get out of their car because the car is flooded. So we evacuate the coastline. You never drive through flooded areas or areas that are going to become flooded, especially at night. That's how we have lost so many people. Gosh, remember Hurricane Harvey? Oh my gosh. Oh, it's terrible. There was a van, and I need to look this up to get it completely correct, but there was a van driven by either mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, one of those. Kids in the van. I do believe they were driving at night, straight into the water, died. And there was also a law enforcement officer, I think, on the north side around Spring, driving at night, straight into the water. That's how people lose their lives in natural disasters here in Houston. So a lot of times you think hurricane, you think winds, you think roofs being blown off and things like that. And can that happen? Yeah, it can. Falling trees, obviously is a huge threat too. And a lot of us live in areas where there's a lot of tall trees, like, Kingwood and Woodlands and places like that. But it's really driving and flooding that's the biggest threat. So with that in mind, prepare for big forecasts, because the El Nino that I mentioned a few minutes ago that tends to actually inhibit storms did not inhibit the storms last year, except for that stretch. We had a stretch July and August where nothing happened, and then all of a sudden we had a flurry of activity. But overall, the number of storms was still very high last year, and with the El Nino beginning to transition to a neutral phase, which is where the water is average and we don't really have any significant effects one way or the other, I expect that the forecasts are going to call for 20 named storms, 22 named storms, 12 or 14 hurricanes. I can predict it, even though the average is 8 hurricanes, what was it, 7 or 8 hurricanes, there's going to be calls for 15 hurricanes. There are also going to be people who may or may not be unscrupulous, who are going to try and make landfall predictions, which we do not have the skill to do. There is absolutely no scientific, we don't have that skill built up right now. And by skill, I mean provable statistics to ahead of time say, this is where the storm is going to hit. So don't listen to those. But it may be a little bit anxiety producing, this hurricane season, I would say. A lot of times the more storms there are, maybe the more anxious we get, the more we have to talk about it all the time. And incidentally, the fact that we now have the GFS and the Euro computer model that go out so many days, and the GFS goes out 16 days. And then there are actually portions that are used in the CFS, which is the climate forecast system, that gives us even a view of what's happening 3-4 weeks out and beyond. And what that does is it allows you to see the potential for storms forming way in advance, which prolongs the amount of time that you have that anxiety. So the best you could do is to be prepared. So you evacuate the coastline, you never drive at night, try to stock up on your supplies, when it's on sale. You know what I mean? You get the bottled water when it's on sale. Or you can get gallon jugs a lot of times for really cheap. It doesn't have to be fancy water. It doesn't have to be, Fiji. It could just be whatever's the basic water that you can store while it's on sale, ahead of time. Maybe get some little bit of extra toilet paper when it's on sale. You know what I mean? Stuff like that you just kind of have in a pantry if you can afford it. If you can't, then you can't. But kind of leave it aside so that there's not necessarily a mad rush if we have a hurricane and not that much of a heads up. Because hurricanes can form, for us, it's a little different. Hurricanes form in the Gulf of Mexico, they might hit within 48 hours. So we have less time. So you can go to our tropical page at fox26houston.com/tropics. Or you can just go to our fox26.com Facebook page, click on weather, and you'll see a link that says tropical update. On that page, if you go down, you'll find links to your individual county, to like emergency management offices. There's an evacuation map that you can click on to see. It's broken down by zip code if you're new. So let's just start thinking about that now. Hurricane season doesn't begin until June 1st. But the hype machine, the craziness, is going to start building up here pretty shortly. We're going to try to keep it under control because, our philosophy is like facts, not fear. But at the same time, it's going to be in the ether. It's going to be out there, you know what I mean? So just be prepared for that and try to take a deep breath. It's going to be a lot of scary predictions, but we need to prepare every single season exactly the same, regardless of how scary the predictions are. So with that being said, shout out to my mom and Neil down in South Florida for watching this all the way through. I really do appreciate it. Finally, please download the Fox Local app onto your smart TV. Roku, go to the search tab and search Fox Local. Amazon, Fire TV, all of that stuff. Whatever you got, search Fox Local. Don't search Fox 26. Fox Local. Download it, and then you'll be able to get all of our content like this, which I know was riveting. We have a lot of other better stuff, trust me. We have Caroline and Rashi is like a pre-show that Caroline Collins and Rashi Vats do. Before the late afternoon, early evening news. It's got a lot of viewers really love it. They're terrific. We've got Melissa Wilson, always has these incredible stories that she finds for Lunch for the Soul, which is how people use their faith to get through these incredible medical, not just challenges, tragedies, but they make it through and get to the other side. with Faith, which is always amazing. There's tons of other stuff. You've got Ruben with the drop, where he tells you all the cool new music that's coming out. He's hip. I still listen to Steely Dan and stuff, and Led Zeppelin, but you know, he's ahead of, he's modern. We've got all of Greg Rugen's political coverage. I know I'm forgetting a lot. You've got JD's emergency gear test. Allison has this new cooking show. Like, I'm not talking, this is not like a holiday where she's baking cookies. This is like full out Food Network quality production. Like, she is a cook. So we've got that coming out. Anyway, lots and lots of other stuff that I know I'm missing some stuff. But anyway, bottom line is Fox Local. Remember, like, you've seen me on TV singing that song or whatever about Fox Local? You know? So anyway, let me know if you want me to do another song. You know, hit me up on social media. Tell me if you think I should do another song. Should I do it like in the style of maybe classic rock or something? Or should I do a ballad? I don't know. But anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys. Thanks for joining me in my backyard. I'm glad the dogs didn't bark. Goose is over there digging a hole. You want to see what he's doing? I'm going to show you what he's doing. He's a bad dog. He's a crazy animal. Let me just show you this. Sorry, that's our pool. I'm not showing off here, trust me. Look at him. Goosey.